Hey, what's going on? It's Bosco.
And Zach.
And we're here today talking about Falling Down.
The 1993 film Falling Down.
By Steven Soderbergh.
Starring Robert Duvall and Michael Douglas.
He's actually more like co-starring, but yeah, Michael Douglas, that's a tour de force right there. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. This was a person. No, don't let him in because he's gonna fuck with the chords. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good solid movie. There's a lot of interesting themes I don't think I really picked up on when I watched this in high school. But it's just overall I'd have to say it's good. It's a little ham-handed at times, I mean, there's a little bit of corniness, but
it's a very 90s film.
Oh, yeah.
It feels super 90s. Like, I know it was filmed in the 90s and was set contemporarily at the same time, but, like, it kind of is dripping, oozing in, like, 90s atmosphere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, from the traffic scenes to how LA looks to, the scene inside the Whammy Burger shop. It's oozing in 90s esque atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is interesting. A lot of times, at least these days, like you ever watch a film and you're just like, man, this movie feels like,
dude,
you can watch
one of the most 90s movies ever is Point Break.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about these extreme athletes or like surfers and skydivers and shit, mm-hmm. and they rob banks as like the dead presidents and shit.
Mm-hmm.
That one is it's a 90s. Mm-hmm. If for some reason like all the fucking interiors are all smoky. But anyway, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about Falling Down. Something I do a lot. Fall down. Flat on my face.
Why do you think it's called Falling Down? Let's talk about that title.
Well, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, this movie's about a guy's spiral descent into madness. Like, kind of just like, the cracking of,
He blows a gasket.
Oh, yeah, he for sure does.
In traffic,
which I completely understand. Hold on. Is very indicative of, like, one thing I took away from this whole movie was, like, the false promise of the American dream, right? Because, at one point, like, I mean, this guy, man, he loses his job. I mean, but let's be honest, he probably did something bad, you know?
Think?
Yeah, I mean,
what did he do?
I don't know, maybe look at someone.
Did he have an episode at work? Because you know what the character strikes me as is like the type of person that I think a lot of us have probably met before, like a quiet, reserved, older guy, and they're like, oh yeah, that's Bill, he does this thing, he's quiet, he's chill, but then, like,
he has a quiet intensity.
Yeah, and then he has, like, a moment where, like, something small, something trivial sets him off, and all of a sudden, like, he bursts, and you're like, holy shit, Bill's a monster on the inside, like, this quiet, reserved guy who seemed like nothing was wrong with him.
It's always the ones you don't expect.
Like, obviously there was, like, a building tension in this person, and I'm sure, you've seen it, and a lot of times it comes out in the workplace, because someone, it can happen in school too.
Well,
but
yeah,
like,
the whole movie is based on, like, going postal.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, yeah.
But, you're at work and you have a coworker who's that quiet, reserved guy. And you're like, oh yeah, nothing phases Bill. But the truth of the matter is things do phase him. Things do bother him. But it's more of like a bottling effect where he bottles. And then something small, something trivial happens. You're stuck in bad traffic, whatever it may be. That person
and you're
is
just like, fuck it, not today.
Set off.
Not today.
That person is set off.
Yeah.
and they snap and they blow a gasket and they freak out harder than you've ever seen most people freak out. And you're like,
I mean, the dude.
Oh my god!
The dude blows up a construction site with a fucking rocket launcher.
What is going on in this person's head? That makes them, go from like, being the quiet, reserved person to something small, setting them off, make them go nuclear, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of a take on that type of person that I think we've all seen, whether it be
the self-destructive type.
Whether it be, I don't know if I would say self-destructive, but like just, the bottled rage, right. And then the little straw breaking the camel's back and igniting that rage.
Right.
And whether the rage is justified or not, I think is for the viewers to decide. So I think we should talk about that a little bit. Like, this guy has... Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna... I just want to, like, before we go on to a different... I just want to talk about, like the failed American dream, because I think Robert Duvall is, like, he's, like, the counterpart, right? Like, he's also kind of just been doing what he's told, but instead he was kind of answering to his wife, right? And, like, he was kind of just, he was just going along with the flow, right? But,
I guess he made his way in a way, like he was, I guess, an established police officer on his retirement day,
Sure, but...
he has problems at home with his wife, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, it's all, like, from what I got, is, like, how two people handled, like, their life crumbling, right? Like, like, they mentioned that, like, Robert Duvall, like, he had a daughter that, like, died in the crib death, and, obviously, fucking, what's his name?
Bill?
The other actor.
Michael Douglas,
yeah.
The character's name is Bill. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
In the credits, he's listed as defense, as was pointed out.
Yeah. Well,
which is what his his license plate says.
But like the whole part with like the I'm not economically viable, I think that like ties into it because like, he feels like he's been robbed. He feels like he's like, look, I did what I was told. I worked at the job. He said, what did he say? He's like, I'm smart, but I'm over... Did he say I'm overqualified? No, he said he's underqualified and overeducated or something like that. Something like that. But basically what I'm trying to get at is that I think that, like, I can kind of actually, like, especially after all this shit the past year, like, with the way people have, like, rethink their lives, I think a lot of people have realized that they're miserable and they're, once taken out of the... You know what I mean? Like, once he was let go from his job, he obviously spiraled because he was laid off a month, and then a month later he goes crazy. He obviously didn't handle his stress the right way. But, you know what I mean? But I think it, like, ties to a larger thing where, like, I feel like a lot of us feel cheated by, like, this system that we live in, that we feel like we're promised that, we can succeed and we can... as long as we follow the rules and, and don't rock the boat, that, that you'll get success, right? Like, he makes a comment about the plastic surgeon's house, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, he feels cheated. Like, you see that in every instance when he goes to the fast food place, when he, you know what I mean? He's like, look at this fucking shit burger. You know what I mean? When he goes to the convenience store, the soda's too expensive. You know what I mean? He's like, he feels cheated. He feels cheated by America, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like all the little things
right.
that build up and... kind of lead to this insanity, like, whether it be like, hey, I need 50 cents to use the phone, let me buy a soda here and break my change and, let me get 50 cents so I can use the phone, and then the soda's just like 35 more cents more than that, and he's like, come on. And the guy doesn't give it to him.
Yeah, which is a very human moment. We've all been...
Or going in to get breakfast at the Whammy Burger and saying, I want breakfast, and we stop serving at 11:30, and it's 11:35. You know,
Yeah.
you're like, why can't I get breakfast? Come on.
Yeah, it's not like. Wait, side note, but that whole argument, you know, fucking McDonald's learned their fucking lesson. Fucking serve breakfast all day.
They don't do it anymore.
They don't?
No, you didn't know.
They
that?
stopped?
They stopped.
I mean, I don't go to McDonald's really, so.
They stopped doing it a while ago.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't.
Well, Jack in the Box is doing it right. All right, because
That's
you know,
their thing.
because you know what.
Most places don't serve it all day.
But you know what? Yeah, I know most.
But I
places
mean,
don't.
come on, you've
But,
worked
like,
you've worked in food before. You know it's hard to
Yeah.
you know, get all that stuff ready. It's a whole nother
the people who work
workstation
behind
that has to be open to, you know.
Yeah, but the
Just
people
in fairness to that.
No, totally. And the people who work, I mean, as someone who used to work at Taco Bell, I completely understand, like, oh my god, dude, do you know how many fucking people would come into fucking Taco Bell and they would it always made me laugh. They'd ask for the fresco tacos, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fresco tacos is literally just a different cheese. And like diced tomatoes instead of salsa or whatever. And it's just like, you know, like customer, like, I don't know. It's a very tough job but it is beside the point. But like, you know, yeah, you know, I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's the little things. It's everything, you know, everything is just.
And in a lot of ways, I feel like, at least the stress that I think that the character's feeling, Bill, is similar to, I think a stress a lot of us feels like, in America, it feels like everybody's got their hands out in some way. Like, you know, there's always some silly charges. You're always getting billed or upcharged or upsold for something, you know, like, you know how many bills? You know what I got a bill for this past month?
What?
Listen to this. So, something funky happened with my health insurance. I was getting health insurance through Covered Cali. And something funky happened with it. Honestly, I think it had to do with something federal, like the Save America Act or whatever. And my health insurance was canceled at the start of June and then restarted for this month. But for the month of June, I didn't have health insurance. And I wasn't alerted of this until about June 20th. And I've been receiving treatment with the substance abuse program that I was in. And I have been receiving treatment. And I had been receiving this treatment while uninsured through Kaiser and not knowing it. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and I got a call telling me that I have about a $1,400 bill.
Oh my fucking god. Dude.
I'm trying to get it fixed. So I got that $1,400 bill for something.
That's
treatment.
such horseshit. Your jaywalking ticket.
My jaywalking citation, which is $800.
Just go to Europe and never come back, dude. Fuck it. They're not, the IRS won't find you in fucking Europe.
Do it right. And meanwhile, the IRS still won't give me the refund that they owe me.
Dude, I still haven't got my... Anyway.
A $2,000 refund.
But you're totally right. And like, you're someone who's been working constantly for, you know, the past couple...
I don't feel like I've done anything wrong to warrant such outrageous
the wrong thing
charges.
Is being an uninsured American and being an uninsured American.
And not through my own fault. I was buying insurance. I was buying and paying for insurance, and something funky happened with it that I don't even understand right now. Some fucking little tiny bullshit. I stepped in the Whammy Burger 5 minutes after breakfast was sold. And some little tiny trivial bullshit throws me off. And now, sorry, you owe us $1,400 for that treatment you received. Treatment that I was getting to reduce my drug and alcohol use because I'm really stressed.
Oh, well, I guess America wants you to be addicted. America's basically telling you to go fuck off, Zach.
It's like, you know, here's that bill you're receiving for your fucking drug and alcohol dependency. By the way, I hope this doesn't make you want to drink more.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, and you're fucking unemployed right now, and you're getting fucked up the ass for this shit.
Oh yeah, and it's It's just sometimes,
it's disheartening. It feels like everything's working against you if you're below if you're below middle class.
Well, it's this idea that I sometimes like to remind myself. It's kind of a little meditative mantra that I give myself if I'm getting really mad about a situation. I usually use it in personal situations where I'm having a problem with somebody in a relationship or whatever, but it could apply to a bigger idea of
serenity now.
No, it's just this idea of just telling yourself, hey, sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. Like you can follow all what you can do what they tell you to do. You can go like the song, and as I was watching this movie, in the end, he says, I did everything right. I lived in your system. I played by your rules. Right. And it reminds me of the Suicidal Tendencies song, Institutionalized, where he says, I went to your schools, I went to your churches, I went to your institutional learning facilities, and I'm the one that's crazy. And like something about that line always stuck with me, and I feel like it's the same kind of vibe in this film Falling Down, where it's like you feel like you did everything right. You went to the schools that they said, hey, go to these schools. You took up the jobs that were like, hey, these are good opportunities. You played the game that the institution told you to play, and you somehow come up short, and you come up owing them. You come up the one indebted, and you're like, I played it your way. And now because I'm breaking, I'm snapping because of this fucking stress that weighs on me, I'm the one that's crazy. I did it. You made me crazy.
You made me. You made me crazy.
So, basically what I see and reading those comments, like to me it's like someone in the YouTube comment section said this, and I thought that was true. They're like, this is the Joker film from the 90s. This is a film of society breaking you. You feel like you do everything right. You're not a bad person. You did what was encouraged of you. You played by their rules, quote unquote. And then when it comes down to it, you owe them something still. You owe them being society or the systems that be, whatever, however you want to frame it. You played all as you believed you should, and at the end you're still indebted to it. You are nothing to it, and you're just a means of exploitation, and you snap, and all of a sudden, oh, that's the crazy guy. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no.
The system made that crazy guy.
Society has made me this crazy wild man.
Oh man,
of some kind.
You don't know how many times I've tried to use that excuse. Society, but yeah, you're right. Like he's like, what's funny is that he's like a product of America, basically. That's basically what he is. But instead of the dream that's sold to everybody, he's divorced, he can't see his kid. The wife didn't say that. He said that he seemed like he would get violent, but he never like really got violent. And so, but like the thing is that I think that points to a bigger thing, that like what you're saying is like the guy was bottled up, right? Yeah. The guy had like all these frustrations with life,
and the real face, the real anger is always shown behind closed doors,
right?
So to the world, he was this calm, collected dude, but the wife saw the real person.
That's when he takes the mask off.
Yeah, behind closed doors, the wife sees the real monster that's boiling up in her husband, and is like, oh my god, this guy's a fucking animal.
I gotta get the fuck out.
Yeah. But to everybody else on the outside, it's like, oh, what could Bill ever do that would scare anybody or whatever?
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know. I think there's a lot of, just in society in general, and I'm not making excuses for this guy. This guy goes on basically on a murder rampage. But like,
Are we supposed to sympathize with this character? That's one thing I was thinking while watching
No,
this.
I don't think you're supposed to sympathize with him. I think what the director was trying to do was he was like trying to be like, look, yes, this guy is abjectly a terrible person, right? Like, but like he in his mind was just like, I'm just trying to get home to see my kid, right? Like he didn't seem like he was doing anything evil. That's why at the end he's like, I'm the bad guy? Because he honestly didn't think he was a bad guy. He's just like, listen, I'm just a father who wants to hang out with his kid. But the thing is that, there's more to it than that, I don't know. I don't think we're supposed to, I don't think we're supposed to excuse it. We're supposed to feel sorry for it. I think we're just supposed to understand what would get someone to that point where they just say fuck it and reject society. Because basically this whole movie is just basically about one day where he just rejects society and it leads to his death.
So
suicide by cop.
Exactly. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up in regards to this movie. So this movie was released in 93.
Before Columbine.
Before Columbine.
Yeah.
But the other day I was with my dad and something had reminded me of a scene from this movie and we started talking about it. And my dad reminded me of, he was like, that sounds like this McDonald's massacre that happened in, I believe it was 1984. In 1984, in a McDonald's in San Ysidro, I went and I read a little bit about this incident. In San Ysidro, California, south of San Diego, some guy, middle-aged, very nondescript, like the character that we follow in this film, nondescript white man, middle-aged, went into a McDonald's.
Holy shit. He fatally shot 21
people
and wounded 19 others.
He killed a lot of people. And he didn't have a long record. There was nothing indicating that he was some crazed mass murderer or would-be crazed mass murderer. And he went into this McDonald's randomly on a random day and pulled out a gun and just started murdering people.
Right.
And when I was reading about it, they were like, what brought this guy to do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And the preceding incident took place over a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, like, his wife said that, like, a couple days before the shooting occurred, that he said he was having mental problems, that he was having some type of mental issues. And he called a mental health hotline in San Diego or San Ysidro. I'm not sure where, but he called a mental health hotline and they said they would call him back. And his wife said that he sat near the phone for about 7 hours, silently staring, waiting for a call back. Whoa. The call was never returned, and when he finally got up, he looked at her and said, I guess society has failed me, or something along those lines. And the next day, he was weirdly distant. They went to the zoo with their daughter. Mm-hmm. This guy, the real life.
This dude had a regular ass day after that?
Yeah. And he was with his wife
after the shooting.
No. This is before.
Okay.
So he tried to call the mental health line.
So the guy was
They didn't call him back.
Yeah.
He said society failed me, and she's like, okay, weird dude. Anyways,
whatever, loser.
And but she just kind of brushed it off. I guess the next day, him and his wife and his daughter went to the zoo, and I guess while he was there. I guess his wife said that he made some weird comments like, I think my life has come to an end. I think I'm done with this. I think I'm done with this world. And that she was like, okay. I guess it's kind of maybe hard to respond to your significant other saying something that maybe you just kind of brush him off as being like kind of like, I guess, frustrated and making like kind of a dark joke or whatever.
Right.
But like later that day, they would return home and he would kind of come up to them and like he told his wife, he's like, I gotta go out for a hunting trip, is what he told her.
Oh.
Yeah, he said, I have to go for a hunting trip. And she's like, okay, goodbye. And he's like, goodbye. And then his daughter said, a little girl said that he like came up to her and he was basically like, goodbye, I'm not coming back. And she was like, okay. And then he went to the McDonald's and proceeded to do the shooting, and it was a suicide by cop. He shot people until the police showed up, and he started shooting at the police, and the police killed him. It was a suicide by cop, but essentially this guy who was a normal person, the investigations later on, and the Wikipedia page on this and other things will say when it'll say motive, everybody always be like, what's the motive behind this? They'll kind of, it says undetermined. Unknown, undetermined. What happened here? We don't know. Someone snapped. Someone broke. Mm-hmm. And nowadays we live in a culture in a country of mass shootings on the regular, and these happen regularly, and so they come and go in the media quickly, and we forget about them. But back then in the 80s, mass shootings, mass murders might have happened from time to time. In other countries and whatnot, and they had serial killers, sure.
Well, like Australia, they had that one major mass shooting event.
Sure, but I think at the time in America, the mass shooting wasn't ingrained in the public psyche the way it is now.
Yeah, now it's expected. Almost.
Exactly. So I think at the time, this shooting might have weighed heavy in a lot of the conscience of America, and they were like, why did this happen? What drove some random guy, seemingly normal guy, to go and do something like this? And I think this film is maybe not necessarily made in a response to that, but kind of I definitely think that that incident inspired a lot of this movie, and that a lot of the ideas and themes and subjects in this movie are inspired by that incident, and perhaps the director, the writers, trying to be like, why would someone just snap like this? A seemingly normal guy. And when they would also later interview the wife, they would find out, she would say, they'd be like, was there signs that he was potentially violent? And she was like, yeah, he was scary from time to time. She was like, on the outside, in the real world, he was quiet, he was reserved. Everybody that knew him through work and public life are like, yeah, this was just some quiet, normal guy. But behind closed doors, the wife was like, he was pretty kind of scary a lot of times, and he would get angry. And so I definitely think that this movie draws a lot on that incident. And especially, there's a scene where he's in a fast food restaurant at the Whammy Burger about to commit mass murder, but he doesn't. But, I mean, come on, if that scene isn't drawn directly from the real life event.
No, totally. But you know what? I totally agree though with that sentiment though. I think that's what this movie is trying to say. Is society like what you said with that guy. He's like, society failed him, and and look, like I said, again, it's not an excuse.
Yeah, none of that makes it right.
No, not a. It's abjectly
mass
horrible.
Murder's wrong in all situations.
Hot take. But I think that the only way that we ever get to the root of these issues is understand what would make someone, when serial killers were first coming around, they had forensic pathologists to figure out why someone, because most murders were done by someone that knew the victim, right? But then when murders started happening to people seemingly at random, right? Possibly by the same person, but they wouldn't expect that. They wouldn't expect that. And they had to change, based on their understanding of that. The thing that's, I think is honestly kind of an indictment to the American system is that we've had so many goddamn fucking mass shootings. And we literally had one in our hometown not too long ago, right? Mm-hmm. Within the last month.
And that was someone going postal at VTA.
Right. And, I think I think it speaks that, that there's a lot of people in America who are unhappy. I know, shocker. But, we have to understand why they're unhappy and try to fix that. That's the only way we're ever going to we're not going to have, someone shooting up a church or someone shooting up a festival, whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think this movie does not completely, excusing Michael Douglas, because Michael Douglas's character, right, you see the degeneration, you see the descent, And I don't know, like, I really find, like, in movies, I mean, The Shining is one of my favorite movies, and that movie is all about the descent into madness, right? Like, how, you know, but I think that, you know, America has failed a lot of people.
Could we take that San Ysidro McDonald's massacre that occurred in 1984, long before, 20 years before we were born, 20, 30 years before the days of the mass shooting, now that we've seen in the 2010s and still occurring, could we take that as an early precursor, an early, like, red flag to what would soon become a nationwide epidemic of senseless mass murder, and for no reason? Here's another one that's similar to the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre. Another one that's, you look at it and you're like, what? Why? Like, there's no reasoning, and it's one that's always creeped me out. Middle-aged white guy, the Vegas shooting, the Las Vegas Country Festival shooting, where it was a random white guy, no signs of anything prior. I mean, like, quiet, reserved, heavy gambler, I guess. Maybe in his personal life there was red flags, but one day this guy just decided, yo, I'm just gonna go kill a bunch of people and suicide by cop, you know?
Right.
And that one's recent. That was 2017, late 2017.
But see, the problem is, though, is that we don't try to understand what drives someone to this. You know what I mean? And that's the failure of the American system. That's the honest fucking failure, you know? And I mean, like, you know, you see in this movie, you know, like, yes, of course, Michael Douglas is the main character, but you see all around that everyone's being what's it called? Not scammed, but sold this bullshit dream. Like, you see, like, you know, I'm not economically viable, you know. I think we have to bring that up.
Yeah.
So at one point there's a black guy outside of a bank and he's yelling, you know, I'm not economically viable, I was denied for a loan, and, you know, then he gets taken away in the car, and, you know, that it just shows, like, I think the most interesting thing about this movie is that it shows, like, where, you know, there's, like, it's not just this guy. It's a societal anxiety, right? It's a society, like, you know, especially after this year of fucking COVID and people losing their fucking jobs and shit. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of fucking people who are in positions where they feel fucking hopeless. And I feel for them, you know? But the thing is that, you know, we don't have great, you know, like, you know, programs to reach out to people, those in need. We have some, but they're underfunded, and, you know, there's only so many people that can, you know, it's tough. It's tough, but the thing is that I think that, you know, this is a byproduct. This is a byproduct of capitalism. This is what it is.
What if somebody doesn't know that they're in need? What if someone doesn't know they're on the verge of a collapse or an episode? I think, and a lot of times people aren't going to know, and they're not going to realize. And
yeah, of course.
Be like, oh, I need help right now, or whatever. There's no scene in this movie where he's like, oh, I need mental health. You know, that's what people say nowadays. You know, whenever these mass shootings happen, there's always the same song and dance, thoughts and prayers, and then mental health awareness, and then maybe gun reform, then everything ends, and then we just wait for the next one, and then
no gun reform ever fucking happens, except recently. You want to talk about what happened in San Jose? Like, no, okay, but you know, so yeah, you know, I just, you know, there's a hopelessness in this movie that I like, you know, that, you know, and that's part of the reason why Robert Duvall, he kind of saw the pattern, right? Is because he saw what he kind of felt in himself, because, you know, at the end he says everyone's got their own version of a dream world, dream life. You know, he's like, I thought it was making babies, right? And then his fucking kid dies in the crib, you know what I mean? And, you know, it's like, you know, the wife, you know, used to be pretty, but then, you know, she had the baby, got put on weight, and then lost her looks, you know, you know what I mean? That there's so many, like, aspects to, like, I don't know, it's just, it gives you a lot to think about.
I have to disagree in some ways. I don't know if I see this movie as an outright condemnation of America or capitalism outright. To me, it feels a little bit more comprehensive of just living life in the modern world in general, right. And that it's just like the little trials, tribulations, and stresses of modern life is enough to drive a man insane. And let me ask you this. There's one thing when I was watching this movie that I kept being like, is he on a mission? Is he inspired by some divine force? Is God guiding him or a divine force guiding him? And if you think about it, like the way things fall into place for him seems very kind of like divinely inspired. Like how he
survives the drive-by. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. He starts in the Korean shop owner's shop. The guy pulls a bat on him. He gets the bat. He uses the bat to fend him off. He gets what he wants. You know, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll take that. Then you know, there's this scene in the park with the Los Angeles gangsters, and they come up, and even if they pull a knife on him, he still wins with his bat. Right. He wins with the bat. Then later on, the next scene, he's at the phone booth. They try and shoot him in a drive-by. They miss every shot. He goes over there, and he's basically won. And he goes over there and he finds the bag of guns. It's almost like some divine force.
Chekhov's guns.
Yeah, well, it's like some divine force gives him these guns and saves him from getting shot. It's like in a lot of aspects, parts of this movie, it feels like almost in a way some divine force is guiding him. And I don't know if you notice this, and as he goes around LA, there's a lot of like weird things on the walls. Like
like a lot of like
in an early one, it says kill, kill, kill all over this wall. Like in graffiti, it says kill, kill, kill. And then when he steals the guns, it shows him looking as he picks up the guns and looking at the car crash, and behind him is a mural of Jesus on the cross. And later on, and later on at the park, as he's walking, there's other graffiti that says like just world peace, world peace, world peace over and over again. And then later on, and following that scene back in the city, there's another mural that he's in front of that looks like it was from some Vietnam or Korean war of some kind. You know, so I feel like as he's falling down through these events, he's kind of being pushed in a way, almost by some divine force.
Almost like you know, like the societal stresses are pushing him. That's the divine, you know, mission he's on. That's the you know what I mean, the driving forces. I feel like it is the you know what I mean, there's already a man who's on the verge, and like, you know, just like all this, you know.
I mean, and his name in credits, and as they refer to him as, is defense. It's not attack or kill or murder, it's defense. Like he's defending himself or something in some way. It felt to me in some way, and it's not
he's defending what he believes is right,
condone any of these actions, but it feels like he's being guided, or how the Nazi guy kind of protects him. The Nazi guy pushes the bag away and helps him hide from the cops. And
but I think you know, I know what you're talking about in that scene, but I think in that scene, like, he makes a mention in a call to his wife where he's like, I've reached like the point of no return. Like I think he did kind of question, you know, it along the way. Like he wasn't like prepared to go like on this, you know what I mean? But I feel like, life in Los Angeles pushed him to do that, you know?
It definitely feels to me like he's almost, not to condone it again, like what he's doing is obviously pretty despicable.
Again,
and I don't think
he's stance is anti-mass murder.
Anti-mass murder, and I think it's pretty I don't necessarily think he's a hero, and I don't even think he's an anti-hero, but I think it feels in the film like there is some odd justification.
He's almost
for
like a
his-
Travis Bickle like character.
for
Almost.
yeah. What was that?
Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like, because he's like kind of like a reject of society.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
It does feel almost like they're not a hero, but there is some weird justification for what they're doing, and it's almost like, in a way, the world or a divine force of some kind is pushing them to say, hey, like, make a statement, because your life is sacrifice. You're sacrificed to the deity. And if you can make a statement and come out, and it's going to cost
You're measured in what you can produce.
it's going to cost your life at the end, but come out here, make a statement, kill people, make noise, and then society will change through you as the sacrifice to the deity. You know,
Well,
so to me, what I see there is that it's not necessarily right or all that justified for what he's doing, but it's, in a way, it's like making noise, making chaos,
right.
sacrificing yourself, and then in a way that forces change.
Right. Well, in an ideal society, it would force, you know what I mean? I mean, like, if something terrible like this happened, it would force change. But we live in a, like you said before, we live in a society where we've become numb to fucking, you know, mass murder. And
We live in a society.
we do live in a society, you're right. Well, you want to wrap it up? Give me your final thoughts, Zach.
Okay, well, final thoughts. I think it's interesting. I like the timing when this movie was released in 1993. If this movie was released nowadays, I think it would be somewhat insensitive just because of
For
the
sure.
proliferation of mass shootings, and the way the guy talks and responds to people is somewhat not all that sensitive and to
Yeah.
certain, you know, things that
Multiculturalism
Yeah.
is very against that.
that our current culture might, you know, not, you know, consider all that cool. But I think it's interesting when this movie was released in the 90s, calling out some type of weird stresses and nonsense and bullshit that might drive a human being to some type of horrible, violent, psychotic snap. You know, that was something that was explored in the 90s, and obviously people have been driven to psychotic snaps prior to this, but anyways, that this was something, an idea of the going postal was something explored in a time where these events were rare, and I think they left a greater imprint in the public's psyche. And I think that there's something to be said about, you know, just the way the movie presents this character as the main character in a not necessarily protagonistic role, but as the character you're supposed to be following and being like, hey, that's, you know, relating with in some way, and the movie telling you this guy, despite his evil acts, is relatable in some way.
And that's
In
kind of
that-
disturbing in a way.
Yeah, and that these justifications he have, you can see them. You can see why. It's not just like, oh, this is senseless violence. This is just nothing. None of it. There's no motive. Which is when you see this from the outside, when you see these mass killings and the mass shootings, you're like, wow, this senseless violence. I don't understand it. Why would somebody do this? And the movie presents it in this way where it's like, you can see the justifications. You can see what brought this guy to this. And it comes in a place and time that I don't think was very aware of stuff like that, or was very in touch
Definitely
with
not,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So I like how this movie kind of explores something that
Ahead
I
of its
think
time,
wasn't
for sure.
ahead of its time, but also if it was produced now, would be received. I think people would say
Poorly.
I think people would see it as insensitive and out of touch.
Interesting.
But
what would you give it?
I would give it out of a 10. I think I would give it a 7.5 to an 8.
Okay.
All
Right.
I like this movie. The acting's strong. Robert Duvall kills it as the detached psycho.
No, that's
Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas kills it as the detached psycho,
right?
And but also weirdly sympathetic. The role of the police and how the police act in this as kind of like some weird societal counterbalance as society trying to fight back or uphold the status quo. The police upholding the status quo, I think, is an interesting metaphor that the movie presents also. And a lot of the scenes are great. Or, you know, the scene, one more in reference to the Divine thing, the kid that comes up to him to explain how to use the rocket launcher.
Oh, yeah.
How would some kid just know that?
Hey, man.
He's
playing a lot of Call of Duty.
No, that's a fucking divine force telling him what to do and how to do it. Come on. So there's a lot of thought-provoking moments in this in this movie, and I think that, you know, the idea of society driving one to madness and then being inspired by some otherworldly force to commit horrible acts in order to possibly inspire change is an interesting idea and something that isn't explored in most movies. And for an early 90s film where shit was being produced like fucking Forrest Gump and whatnot, I think it's it's weirdly countercultural, and I like that. So yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and say almost an 8.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I gotta, you know, this is definitely like in line with, you know, all of the typical, you know, like reject from society type trope, you know, but I think, you know, it's interesting because, yeah, you're right. It is like, you know, the stresses of the modern age, you know. I think that it's a good statement on, you know, what would lead someone to do something like crazy like this, for sure. But, you know, it's interesting. Like you said, the guy's not a hero. He's not an anti-hero. He's just kind of like a person, and you're forced to just look at him kind of as an object person, because if you're rooting for him, then you're a fucking psycho. And you know, you can't root against like the main character in the movie. I mean, you can't. You're watching the movie, right? So you're forced to live this movie through Michael Douglas's point of view, right? You're forced. Him and Robert Duvall. Right? There's no scene that doesn't have either of them in it, right? They're both. So it's like, it's a duality, right? It's a duality. Like, Robert Duvall also felt cheated by, you know, he believed his dream life would be to have kids and live this happy life, married and whatnot. But, you know, his kid dies and resentment builds in his marriage, and, you know, the wife is unhappy, and, you know what I mean? And he's made a piece of it at the end. At the end, he's like, I'm a cop. I know who I am. I need to be true to who I am, right? He has like a positive change. But see, Michael Douglas, he went down the path of hate, you know, and hatred.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and you know, anger leads to hatred.
Yoda.
Yeah.
Quote Yoda.
But you know, I think this is definitely I don't hear it talked a lot, like when I hear movies brought up a lot, but this is a sleeper for sure, a 90s sleeper. I think
I'd rank it up there with great countercultural movies.
For sure. But, you know, like, the thing is that, you know, like I said, you're not rooting for the guy. You're not rooting against him. You're just you're just living and seeing this guy. You're seeing this guy, and you're forced to see why. And I don't know, I find that interesting, because, like, most people be like, man, fuck this guy. He's a fucking piece of shit. He murdered these people and all this stuff. And yeah, he is. For sure. Again, the stance of us is anti-mass murder, okay? I just need to make this absolutely clear, okay?
We're not saying that what he does is
no
kosher.
And we're not laughing because of insensitivity. We're laughing because of the uncomfortability of this. But you know, I think that a lot of good art forces us to be uncomfortable, and it forces us to look at something from a different perspective. And that's why I think this movie is very interesting and poignant. You know, I'd probably give it. I mean, this is it's a very good movie. I'd recommend it. You know, it's about 2 hours. I'd probably give it about. I think I'm right there with you. I think I'm about 8.5. I think that's where I'm rocking at, because I think this movie does something. You know, it's a very original story, and you know, it doesn't like. I always like it when a movie is like, it doesn't matter who the characters are. It's more so like the person in the situation, right? Mm-hmm. You're not wrapped up in the character of Michael Douglas, or you're more so just like, okay, who is this guy? You're just dropped into him in traffic, right? You're given no backstory, right? It unfolds. The story unfolds, and as you peel back the layers, you see why he, you know what I mean? In the beginning, you just think it's a dude who's just lost his mind, but then you're like, okay, you know, he's divorced, he can't see his kid, he lost his job, you know. And I think that, you know, I think it's a very well done movie. So I think that's all we got to say about that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you for listening.
Good night.